Hey guys, thanks for joining for Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Disney Villainous. This is a new game by Wonder Forge, and it is a 2 to 6 player game that takes roughly a half an hour to an hour to play. And it is a competitive game, so each player is going to be working against the other players to meet their objective first to be the overall winner. So in the game itself, each player is going to take on the role of an iconic Disney villain, and each villain is going to have their own objective that they're trying to meet to take over their realm. And they're going to do this by gaining different power tokens to buy and use cards, bring in allies, and do different effects to accomplish that goal. Now the other players aren't going to just sit idly by as your villain tries to take over his realm. They will, throughout the game, be able to play fate cards from your fate deck onto your realm that'll introduce heroes and different effects and items that are going to try to thwart you or slow you down in meeting your objective so that they can hopefully meet their objective first and be the winner of the game. So my opinions on this one, I had a really good time with this one. I love Disney movies and I was really interested to see how they were going to introduce that into a board game. And they did a really good job with this one. I love the Disney villains, and this one introduces 6 Disney villains that you can learn and work with, and each one has their own different objective, which adds to the replayability because as you master one, you can move on to the next one and see how your hand is with that one. And there's all kinds of different things with this one, and there is some player interaction, which is nice, with the fate cards introducing different things and slowing down players, introducing heroes and different obstacles for the players to try to get past to meet their objective. And it's not super heavy. The rules are very straightforward and simple. There's not a lot of complexity, so this is a great game for families or light gaming groups as well, as there's not a lot of backstabbing and stuff like that where young children are going to get upset and that kind of stuff, depending upon the play style of your family, of course. But with this one, like I said, it's light enough that I feel like young kids can handle it, and any Disney fan, of course, would probably love to try this game, so definitely recommend checking this one out. And I'd love to hear from you guys as well. Let me know in the comments below if this is one you've picked up or are interested in picking up, and what your favorite Disney villain is, of course, if it's one in the game or if it's one that they haven't released yet. Let me know in those comments below which one you will be looking forward to as well. And of course, these are just my opinions. I'd love to hear yours as well in those comments below. And if you enjoy these videos, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference and is one of the biggest things that companies look for when choosing my channel to teach their games. So help me out, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let me keep making these great videos for you guys. And if you want to stay up to date on all my videos, please consider hitting that notification bell as well so you get notifications anytime I release new content. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you guys how to play. Each villain is going to have 2 different decks of cards that they're going to be using throughout the game. This first deck we're going to look at are the villain cards, and these are going to have the colored background on them. This deck is going to be comprised of 4 different types of cards, which are condition, item, ally, and effect cards. And some of the villains will also have special cards in that deck as well. For example, with Maleficent, she has cursed cards as well in her deck. From there, let's take a look at a breakdown of the cards. So with condition cards, they're going to have the name of the condition on them and the effects of the condition. And with condition cards, normally they are going to be played on other players' turns when certain conditions are met that'll cause them to trigger. And then you'll play that card from your hand to resolve that condition, and then it'll go to the discard. Item cards are going to have a cost and power that you must pay in order to play them, and they'll have their name and then any effects that they have. And with items, they're going to be played on the villain's board, or if the item says specifically that it must be attached to an ally, then you'll have to play the item, attach it to an ally. And if you don't have any allies, then you cannot play that item card. Next, we have the ally cards, which again will list the cost and power to bring them out, and then you'll play them to the bottom of the villain's board. Each ally will have a name and any special conditions for that ally, and then each ally also has a strength value which will help them vanquish any heroes that are in their space, and I'll cover that more later. Finally, we have effect cards, which again will have a listed power cost that you'll have to spend in order to activate them, and then the name of the card and the effects of the card that you'll resolve, and then each effect, when resolved, will go into your discard pile. The other deck that each villain will have is a fate deck, which will have the white background on the cards. And the fate deck is going to be comprised of 3 different types of cards: effect cards, item cards, and hero cards. And with these cards, each card is going to have a name and any conditions for that card, as well as with the item and hero cards, they're also going to have a listed strength in the bottom corner. And with the item cards, if they have to be attached to a hero and there isn't a hero out, then you cannot play the item card and it'll simply be discarded. Now with heroes, when they're going to be played to the top of the villain's board, and I'm going to cover this more during that phase. Each villain is also going to have a realm board that will correspond with their villain. So with this one, it is Jafar's board, and each villain's board will list the objective of that villain that they're trying to achieve in order to win the game, and then it will have 4 different locations on it, and each location is going to have a number of different actions that the villain will be able to perform when they're at that location. Each location is also going to have a shaded spot for fate cards to be played, and when a fate card is in this spot, it will block off the actions underneath it. So for example, with this one, if we had a fate card covering it, you would not be able to perform these 2 actions at the top. At the bottom of each spot on the board location is going to be a spot for the villain to play his cards into those areas. And then finally, on the last location, some of the villains are going to have a lock symbol on there. So at the start of the game, you're going to place a lock token over that location, which cannot be used by both the fate or the villain until that location is unlocked. And I'm going to cover this more a little bit later. And in the base game, there are 3 villains that have this, which are Jafar, Captain Hook, and Ursula. And the final thing we need to go over is each villain will have a villain guide with them. Each villain's guide is going to list that villain's objective and then the ways in which they can complete that objective. And it's also going to provide that villain with information about specific cards that are included in their stuff. So for example, with Maleficence here, she's going to go into detail about the curse cards that she has access to. And on the other side of the card, again, is going to be more on the curses and any other cards that will help her achieve her objectives. So whenever you choose a villain, make sure you go over all of the villain guides information because it will really help you in your game. For player setup, each player is going to choose a villain they'd like to play as, and then they'll gain their villain's realm board, and then they can also grab both of their villain's decks. For the villain deck, go ahead and shuffle it up and then draw 4 cards to be your starting hand. And then the rest of the cards you can put off to the side of the villain board and make sure you leave a space in the bottom for the discard pile. Then go ahead and grab the villain's plot deck as well, shuffle that up, and place that on the opposite side of the villain board. Go ahead and get the mover token and place that on the leftmost space of the villain's realm. And with the villains that have the lock in the bottom location on the far right location, go ahead and put a lock token on those. And again, those are going to be for Jafar, Captain Hook, and Ursula. From there, then you can also grab the villain's guide for that villain and a quick reference guide for your player as well. From here, then you're going to choose one player to be the starting player to go, and then based on the number of players, as you guys can see here on this diagram, each player is going to receive a number of power tokens, with the first player not receiving any, the second player receiving 1, the third and fourth players receiving 2, and if you're playing with 5 or 6 players, they will receive 3 power point tokens apiece. From there, we're ready to start the game. Disney Villainous is played over an undefined number of rounds. During each round, each player is going to get to take a turn in clockwise order, and during each player's turn, they're going to follow a set of steps in order to complete their turn. This is going to continue moving from player to player until one player has met all the objectives for their villain, and at that point, then that player will win the game. Each player's turn is going to consist of 3 steps which are done in order, which are to move your villain, then perform actions, and finally draw cards. And I'm going to take you through each one of these steps in more detail. The first step in a player's turn is to move their villain. At this point, you have to move the villain's marker to another location. You can never stay in the location you started the turn in, unless you have a card or effect that says otherwise. And the other restriction to this is if you have a villain that has a lock token on their last location, then you cannot move your villain marker to that location. So let's go ahead and start with our Maleficent player, and so they're going to start by moving their villain marker over to the forest location. The second step in a villain's turn is to perform the actions on the location that they're at. The villain can perform any of the actions on that location as long as they're not covered, and they can do it in any order that they choose. Now, the one important thing with the top location, if there is a fate card in that location blocking off those 2 actions, then the villainous player cannot perform those actions that are blocked off. They can only perform the actions that are not covered. Now, during the villain's turn, if they perform actions and they're able to defeat the card that is in that location and these new actions are revealed, they can resolve those actions at that point. So at this point, I'm going to take you through each one of the actions listed in order on the quick reference card so you can see how each one of them works. Again, you can only take the actions that are listed on the location that you're at that aren't covered up. So you won't be able to do all of these actions, and for each symbol that is on that location, you can do that action one time. So some locations will list the action multiple times, which means you can take it multiple times, one for each of the symbols on there. So the first one we're going to look at is to gain power. So with this one, you're going to gain a number of power tokens based on the number at your location. So with Maleficent here, she can gain 3 power from the 4th location, so we'll place 3 power tokens in her area. The next action we're going to look at is to play a card. This action will allow us to play one card from our hands, and depending upon that card is how it'll affect us. So with a lot of the cards, such as the allies or items or effect cards, they're going to have a cost and power which you must pay in order to do that card. So let's say, for example, that we want to bring out an ally. So with this one, the Sinister Goon here, it's going to cost us 2 power, so we'll spend 2 power back to the cauldron, and then we can place the ally in any one of the locations except for a location that is locked. With Maleficent, none of her locations are locked, so we can place our ally in any of the locations. So let's go ahead and put him in the castle. With the Activate action, you're going to choose one item or ally in your realm with the Activate symbol, and then if that card has a cost, you have to pay that in order to activate it. Now this is also going to bring in a perfect point with this, as not all of the villains are going to have all of the different action symbols on their cards or locations. And with Maleficent, she does not have any cards or locations that have the Activate symbol on them. So for this example, we're going to take a look at Jafar's card, Iago. And as you guys can see, it has the Activate symbol on its card, and you have to pay 1 power. And then if you're able to do that, then you can go ahead and move Iago and an item at his location to an unlocked adjacent location. The Fate action is going to allow you to choose an opponent to target, and then you're going to reveal the top 2 cards of their Fate deck. From there, then you can choose one of those cards to put into play. And if either one of those cards can be put into play, then the action is simply wasted and both cards are moved to the discard pile. Now, if you're playing a 5 or 6 player game, then that person will also receive the Fate token, which means that they cannot be targeted again if they have the Fate token. And this will continue passing from player to player as the players are targeted. And this is only used in a 5 or 6 player game. You can choose to use it in a lower count game if you want to, but that would be a house rule. So let's take a look at an example of this now. Let's go ahead and say that it's Prince John's turn, and he chooses to play a Fate action on Maleficent here. So he's going to draw the top 2 cards of her Fate deck, and then he's going to choose one of those to put into play. Now with items here, like this item, it says that we have to attach it to a hero. So if there isn't a hero out on the board already, you cannot choose to use that item. So we will simply have to discard this item right away as there's not a hero out. And we do have a hero here, so when we have a hero, we're going to place it out in one of the locations, covering up those top 2 actions of Maleficent's. The only restrictions to this, again, are if a location has a locked token on it. Now, once that token has been removed, then that location is open for both heroes and allies to be moved into, as well as Maleficent's marker. She can move into a location as well. So let's go ahead and put Merryweather over here to cover up this space here. The one other thing is, if we would have drawn 2 item cards or 2 cards that we could not use or put out, then those are simply going to be discarded, and Prince John has wasted his action. The move an item or ally action is going to allow you to move one item or ally at any location in your realm to an adjacent location. And you may not move an item or ally into or out of a locked location, and you may not move an item that is attached to an ally or hero. So let's look at an example of this. If we had a move action in our location here, we could choose to move any one of our allies or items, as long as it wasn't attached to an ally, to another location. So for example, with our goon here, we could shift him over to the forest if we wanted to, if we had a move action. Move a hero action works pretty much the same way. You're allowed to move one hero at any location in your realm to an adjacent location, and you may not move a hero into or out of a locked location. So again, if we had an action that allow us to move a hero, we could shift that hero to another location that is adjacent to the location that it starts at. The Vanquish action is going to allow you to defeat one hero at any location in your realm using one or more allies that are already at that same location as the hero. Each ally and hero is going to have a strength that is listed in their lower left corner, and those strengths have to be equal or greater than in order for the allies to defeat the hero. So for example, here we have Merryweather, and her strength is 4. And down here we have 2 allies. One of them has a strength of 1, and it gets an additional strength for each hero at this location, so it actually has a strength of 2. And then our other ally here has a strength of 3, and he would get an additional if there's any curses, but there is not. So their combined strength is 5, which is going to be greater than Merryweather's. So in order to vanquish her, you'll discard both of those allies, and then she would move to the discard pile as well. Now, if you have more allies there, say if we had a 3rd ally, we would not have to discard all 3 allies. It's just that we have to discard enough allies that are going to equal the strength of the hero we're trying to vanquish. And that includes items as well. If you have an ally with an item, you can choose to use them over other allies or whatnot. You don't have to eliminate everything at that location. But if you use an ally with an item, then the item is also going to be discarded. And the last action we're going to look at is discarding cards. So this one will allow you to discard any number of cards from your hand to the top of your discard pile face up. This will allow you to get new cards for your next turn. So at this point, let's put this all back together and take the actions for our turn. So first off, we're going to go ahead and gain 3 power. And again, we can do these in any order we want to. And then from there, we can play up to 2 cards and then discard cards. So let's go ahead and see what cards we have. And let's go ahead and let's play this one. This will allow us to stay at this location for our next turn, so we do not have to move. And that is not going to cost us any power. And then let's go ahead and play a goon as well. So we'll spend 2 power points to use the goon's card. And then again, we're going to go ahead and put him in, we'll put him in the forest with us this time. From there, we've done our 2 playing card actions, and we've gained our power. So the last thing we can do if we want to, now we don't have to, is to discard any cards in our hand. So let's go ahead and get rid of Malice, as that one's really not going to help us right now, and we could potentially get some better cards next turn. Now we could choose to discard the curse as well, but I want to keep a hold of this one. So then at the end of a player's turn, they're going to draw back up to 4 cards in their hands. And as our player has only 1 card, they're going to get to draw 3 new cards into their hands. From here, then it will move on to the next player in clockwise order to take their turn. So let me take you through one more example of this. So we're going to move over to Prince John's turn. And with him, his objective is to get at least 20 power at the start of his turn. So his whole goal is to gain as much power as possible. So at the start of his turn, we're going to move his location marker, and we're going to go ahead and move it over to the jail, as we're going to get 3 power from that. So we'll gain 3 power tokens. And then we can also play a card and then discard cards from our hand. So let's see what we have. So we have lots and lots of allies and 1 condition card. So it's important for us to have some allies, so let's go ahead and start by building Trigger. So we're going to have to spend 2 power to bring him out, and that'll be our 1 card that we've played this turn. And we'll put him in Nottingham. From there, then we can discard any number of cards from our hands, and none of these cards are really going to be super helpful for us, so we're going to go ahead and discard all of these. And that will finish off our action phase, as we've done the 3 actions that we are able to. Then we're going to finish our turn by drawing back up to our hand size of 4 cards. From there, then it'll move on to the next player in clockwise order. And like I said, this is going to continue until one of the players has met their objective. At that point, then the game will end immediately, and that player will be the winner of the game. Well, I hope you guys found that video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by my Facebook and Twitter accounts. Let me know what you guys are playing or doing. I'd love to start a conversation with you. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it, and I try to take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. And if you enjoy these videos, if you like what I do, please consider that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference and help me to continue to grow and bring these exciting games to you guys. So until next time, I'll see you later.